Jiji. My first memories as a child are related to following Jiji, my mother, everywhere she would go. I would constantly run after her, holding the pallu of her sari, seeking her attention during her very busy mornings. I remember she felt very bad for not paying attention to me. Gigi, after finishing her work, would eventually come to me and comfort me. I remember Gigi was a very hard working woman whose day would start quite early every morning, and it was packed with chores all day long. She would not change what was in her schedule, even when sometimes my dad would get frustrated and say she does what she wants to do. My three sisters and I learned from early childhood to wait for our turn as our mother had a lot of responsibilities. I remember my primary school would start in the afternoon, and hence I would get attention only after my sisters had gone to their schools and my dad to his office. She, however, was very kind hearted and caring and would find time for everyone. Typically, after finishing her morning chores, Gigi would find time to catch up on other things. She would read stories from women magazines to my grandmother, would sew clothes for my sisters, and knit sweaters for everyone in the family. In the evening, she would help us with our homework, bring groceries from the market, iron everyone's clothes, clean drains, make everyone's bed, or water her plants. She would keep a close watch on our playtime and would call us back from the park before it was dark. After the dinner, she would finish her day listening to new poems of my father and write letters to my nanny, her siblings, and to my uncle and my grandmother. I remember we would celebrate all festivals and she would prepare unique dishes related to that festival. Each year, we also celebrated Shraddh of several of our ancestors, and Gigi would prepare special food and invite Brahmins in the honor of our ancestors. She would be the first person to raise her hand to help our extended family and friends, whether there was a wedding or someone was in the hospital. As we lived in New Delhi and my father had a big social circle and we had a very loving extended family, we used to frequently have guests at our home. She would welcome every guest and was a great hostess. She also was an equally good neighbor, ensuring that she helped them on all occasions. She worked a lot and had her ways to do things. She would sometimes perform several activities at the same time and would rush to meet self created deadlines and priorities and often hurt herself. She came last on her priority list and she would not eat or drink until her morning schedules and prayers were completed. She inherited love for Ramcharitmanas from her father and she would not miss her morning part, her evening artis, and Hanuman Chalisa. She would find her peace from these prayers and it was her me time. She had no friends except her family and had no personal desires or hobbies. She would never gossip with neighbors and did not go to watch movies or had any personal choices over things. She, however, loved being in control over her time and how she did things, but never complained of constant new demands we all had from her. My father, upon his retirement, decided that instead of being an empty nester, he would not make a nest. He wanted to travel, spend time with his extended family and friends, and take a break from the responsibilities of owning and maintaining a house. He had a very strong conviction of this idea, and typically he would not negotiate his thoughts and plans with anyone. Most of his well wishers were nervous about this idea, including Gigi, but she would not question her husband. She did not have time to think about the future. While Gigi did not openly oppose the idea, it immediately disrupted the way she was accustomed to live her life. From someone who would decide how and when things were done, she would now have to readjust her life based on her host's lifestyle. Suddenly, she would now have more time and no real household responsibilities. She would have to learn to be sensitive to the fact that she would live as a guest instead of living in her own house, and she would have to learn to bring minimum disturbance to their lives. She, however, adjusted very well and did not let this change affect her spirits. Everywhere she would go, she would find a way to keep herself engaged and busy in her host's house and continued to support my father's travel and social ambitions. As part of her new lifestyle, she learned new languages, new skills, and traveled both within and outside of India. She, however, did not change her working habits and would go out of her way to help wherever she went. Her heart condition also did not deter her spirits, and she remained very active even after her open heart surgery and never complained of frequently moving from one country to other or from one city to another. The last 1.5 years of her life saw another change. In view of increasing inconvenience in long and tiring intercontinental travel, my father eventually decided to settle down in one place. My move to the US contributed to the decision that they would settle in India instead of Canada. My youngest sister and brother in law evicted their tenant and remodeled the ground floor of their house to make a permanent abode for my parents. Gigi was super excited to get back her autonomy and was jubilant with the new situation. She started her routines again and enjoyed living in her own space. Unfortunately, her artificial valve was aging and started to give trouble, but another surgery was not immediately possible due to the onset of pandemic. My sisters, looking to Gigi's failing health, would insist she avoided some activities and restricted some movements. Gigi would listen to their advice, but as soon as the discussion was over, she would again resume her work or would offer her help for the next activity. On November 4th, 2020, Gigi left us after some unexpected post surgical complications. Until the day she went to the hospital, she was working and left a lot of unfinished chores with the confidence that she would complete them after she came back. Her stay in ICU was heartbreaking, where she struggled for every breath for 40 days. She, however, braved this time to come back to her permanent abode and breathed her last on the Karwa Chauth day and after completing her last recital of Sundarkand. Our family was devastated, and we could not believe that someone so active would no longer be moving at all. All our life, we received support and love from Gigi and never could do anything for her. She helped everyone until her last day. Almost everyone who consoled us mentioned that they sincerely believed she was a divine soul who had paid all her dues and has achieved nirvana. She even ensured that her 40 days stay in the ICU would make my dad physically not dependent on her. We know he is devastated on her death, but she has left enough love for him to survive in her memories. To me, the grief of Gigi's departure also brought a guilt that I never was there when she was in ICU or to say her final goodbye. She did everything for me and I could do nothing. When I would sometimes feel really horrible, she would come to my thoughts and remind me of the following prayer. श्रृंगार जगत का जो करती उसका श्रृंगार करूं कैसे, नवरत्न लुटाती जो सब पर उसको उपहार धरूं कैसे। धन्यवाद।